You're back in today NFL Fantasy Football 2025 Mock Draft, Dynasty League, Rookie Redraft. Even if you're not in a Dynasty doing a Rookie Redraft League, man, you're going to want to know who these rookies are coming into the league in 2025. I got a bunch of them right here, also mocked out. You know, it's important to consider whenever you're going to be drafting these guys in fantasy, what spot, what destination are they currently projecting and trending to get drafted to. So with that said, we got the pictures, we got the names, we got the logos of the team. If you guys want to see more fantasy content, man, I really want to, roll it out for you all. So smash the like button to help me out. Make sure you subscribe. It'll really be motivating. Let's get into the video. So we're doing 2 rounds. As you can see here, we got, 24 players. So we got a 12-team league. I can make the rules. So I'll kind of describe it if it's super flex, and if it's not super flex, I'm assuming it's full PPR as well. So with that said, let's get into the mock draft. So you're the 1 of 1. You're on the clock, first pick. There's a couple different options right now. In Dynasty, it's very interesting. If you're a quarterback needy team in a super flex league, you might have to cough up some money and take Cam Moore. You might have to take Shedeur Sanders. You might have to take one of these guys early on. If you have the 1 of 1 though, I'd recommend trading back to the 1 of 4 and potentially gaining another 2nd round pick or 3rd round pick and in a combination, trading back for a quarterback this year. Because the 1 of 1 guys, there's only one guy that the 1 of 1 can be. And it's got to be Mr. Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, man, he's been a man on a mission in Boise State. And let me tell you, man, he went from a 1,900 total yard sophomore season to 2,700 total yards in his junior year. He's got really good balance. He's the yards after contact. He's very good, very dynamic, and you can see right here. Look at his landing spot, Dallas Cowboys. A lot of projections where they're saying, Jenny's going to end up on Dallas's roster. Well, Dallas has what, like the 12th pick in the draft. I've been seeing some recent mock drafts. We've been doing mock drafts of our own, so stay tuned for that as well. But I've been seeing drafts where Jenny is gone top 7. Like, his draft stock might be rising. The only thing that might drop him down to Dallas at number 12 is that there are it's a deep running back class for sure this season. So Ashton Jeanty has got to be the 1 of 1 in my opinion. After the 1 of 1, it's very interesting. In fact, I think there's two or three guys that can go after Ashton Jeanty, I believe. And that's, I still think if you're a super flex, quarterbacks might get raised up a little bit, especially if it's a quarterback needy team. But just straight up talent, the next tier I'm looking at is Caleb Johnson, Omarion Hampton, and Tet McMillan. All of these guys kind of project out as guys that, they're going to be contributors immediately. Now, Caleb Johnson going to the Chargers, it's not the best. It's not the best landing spot because they already have Dobbins, and I just don't feel like they would move on from him that quick. So my number 2, man, and I'm not going Tet McMillan either. I'm going to Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton's going to be my number 2 in this mock draft, just because if you're a running back needy team, running backs are hard to come by. And we've seen that running backs who have first-round draft capital invested in them, they always hit very likely. Now, is Omarion Hampton going to be a round 1 running back? You can see right here, he's trending as a round 2, early round 2 type guy. The Raiders get Shedeur and Omarion Hampton in this case. Either way, if you look at the hit rate, meaning if a player gets drafted in round 2, so the amount of success running backs who have been drafted in round 2 have had in fantasy, it's a 65% hit rate. So Omarion Hampton has a pretty good chance of having a pretty successful career. And, trending him out, looking at how he was in college, he's basically carried North Carolina for a couple years, even when Drake May was his quarterback. He's had 2 straight years of 1,500 plus rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. Really good receiving potential, too. Going to Las Vegas, where he's competing with Sincere McCormick. I just think it's a great landing spot, and I think that, he's going to have to be the number 2 off of my big board right here. So we got Jenny 1 of 1, Omarion Hampton 1 of 2. Number 3, is there going to be a run on running backs? Because really, there's a bit of a tier drop off after this. My number 3, though, I'm going to go Tet McMillan. Now, this is where I think you really have a bit of a talent drop. Jeanty and Hampton, I think those are going to be some guys that can really help you out a good bit. Tet McMillan, he is the wide receiver 1 in this class, along with Luther Burden. I know you're saying, where is Travis Hunter? We don't even know if he's going to be playing wide receiver cornerback, so, we'll show that, and we'll talk about that soon right here. But I'm going to go with Ted McMillan as my 1 of 3 because McMillan, he's got 2 straight seasons of 1,300 plus yards and 8 touchdowns. His comparisons are like T. Higgins, Drake London, that type of player right here. He has really good deep speed. He's got to, kind of improve on his route running and whatnot. Long arms, good catch radius. He's got good upside in a PPR type league. My only concern, you can see right here, I'm going 1 of 3 because this has him going to the Patriots. I think that's a very, very good landing spot. There's no clear wide receiver there. However, I've seen a lot of mock drafts recently where Ted McMillan goes to the Saints, 7th or 8th overall in the draft. And if he goes to the Saints, then he's going to have to battle with Olave and not necessarily the best quarterback play. So it's a bit concerning, and that's the good thing about these mock drafts. If he goes to the Patriots, I think that his draft stock will rise in these rookie drafts, and he'll be top 3 type guy off of the board. Ted McMillan, my 1 of 3. Up next, I could really see some teams starting to draft quarterback here, and I think that's they wouldn't necessarily be faulted for that either. I think it's the right time for quarterbacks to start going off the board, and I think the first quarterback off the board is probably going to be Cam Ward in this case. My 1 of 4 is going to be Cam Ward now, and even I'm going to go 1 of 5 Shedeur Sanders as well. I think either one interchangeable. I think picks 4 through 6. You're going to really start seeing Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward get drafted. Maybe they start even falling a little bit beyond that. But Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, I think Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders would be a much better landing spot in this case, just because Shedeur Sanders now has Amari Hampton at running back. And I just think that the Raiders, they have Brock Bowers, Shedeur Sanders, Amari Hampton. Shedeur Sanders has a bit higher of a ceiling, in my opinion. Definitely a lower floor. Kind of a boomer bust type guy. Cam Ward, Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is the reason you get excited about Cam Ward going to the Giants. Obviously you can talk about the draft capital invested into him being the 1 of 1. If he goes to, or I guess not. I guess this is quite interesting. They have the Raiders, I guess, picking Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, where's the Titans? Where are the Titans? Kind of interesting, right? But if this was the case, man, Shedeur Sanders would be very happy. I feel like this would be like his ideal landing spot. Probably not going to happen. But you can see Cam Ward and Shedeur going off the board back to back. So now we have what? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3. Am I counting right? We have 5 guys off the board. That was the 4 and the 5. The next guy I want to talk about, it might have to be another running back. There's one running back that I really think could have a solid career. Caleb Johnson right here. This guy is good. Caleb Johnson, he's a typical Iowa State running back. Iowa and Iowa State. Typical Big Ten running back who grinds the ground game for the Big Ten team. He has great visions, stays balanced on indirect contact. He finds the end zone, a lot of touchdowns. He rarely goes backwards, falls forward, yards after contact. And his O-line not necessarily was the best in college football. Also an underrated receiver, but especially intriguing in non-PPR, where he could be the lead back in a scheme like this for the Chargers. Now, we'll have to see what happens with J.K. Dobbins, before you go ahead and draft him. But we're going to go with Caleb Johnson at the 1 of 6. Now, the 1 of 7, this is a guy where I just think that I think he's Taysom Hill. I think he is reborn Taysom Hill, and Tyler Warren is my 1 of 7 in this mock draft. Now, Colston Loveland to the Broncos, he's also going to be my 1 of 8. Now, there's some guys that are falling, but especially if you're in a Superflex league, there's a decent chance that these guys might have tight end premiums. If there's tight end premiums, I could see Warren and Loveland even going a bit higher. Loveland to the Broncos would be a great landing spot. Warren to the Broncos would be a great landing spot. I've seen Warren going to the Rams. I think that these guys are very, very talented players. Tyler Warren, he's going to have probably less receptions than Colston Loveland. Loveland kind of figures out is that he's going to get a lot of targets, heavy volume, be a solid tight end. Now, the last 2 years we've had rookie tight ends be the number 1 tight end in fantasy with Laporta and then Brock Bowers. I think Tyler Warren and Loveland, man, they're a very, very good pair of tight ends this year to potentially be top 5 tight ends in fantasy. These are the next 2 boys off of the board. Now, I think that's what we have 8 guys off the board. I think now number 9. We've seen some guys falling, and the main faller I want to say is Luther Burden. Luther Burden, where's he at? Right here. The Washington Commanders. Now, I've seen Luther Burden rising up draft boards as well. The Commanders might be able to get him if they lose the first round of the wild card. But Burden, he was a 5-star recruit. He never really was the prospect people thought he would be at Missouri. Then as a sophomore, he had 1212 receiving yards, 1,212, 9 touchdowns. Then he fell back to only 676 yards and 6 touchdowns this year as the Tigers' entire offense took a step back. So it's a guy that took a step back, potentially could have been getting a higher draft class if he didn't choke in this most recent thing. But talking about talent, 5-star recruit, he has all the makings of a good fantasy football asset. Is he a wide receiver 2 type guy, or is he a wide receiver 1 type guy? Going to the Commanders, he'd be the wide receiver 2 under McLaurin, but honestly, I think this would with Jaden Daniels, the ceiling might be limitless. So this would be a good destination. That's why I have him going right here at the 1 of 9. Continuing on, I think we're going to see a bit of a run on receivers right here. Next receiver I want to go off of the board is Travis Hunter to the Jaguars. Now I know what you're thinking. Why is Travis Hunter, this very early draft pick in the draft, why is Travis Hunter right here when, first off, this mock draft might make no sense. So if you want to see me do my own mock draft and then re-update all of these, let me know in the comments. But, assuming Travis Hunter goes anywhere, it doesn't matter where he goes. Why is he the 3rd receiver in this mock draft off the board as opposed to being number 1? Well, the reason is he might have a really high ceiling, but he's not the most refined receiver. I think McMillan and Burden are better receiver floors to start. I think Hunter definitely could go. He might not even play. That's the main reason, though. He could come into the NFL, and they could say, you know what, you're going to be our lockdown cornerback. I know he wants to play both sides of the ball, but that might not be too realistic. Got to go Travis Hunter. It's a bit of a faller. If you get Travis Hunter here, you're worried, but you're also happy thinking that you just had a gem fall into your lap. Now, up next, another receiver. Again, a bit of a run. Where is he? Emeka Egbuka. So there's no way the Jaguars get both of these receivers in the draft. That would be kind of wild. But he went back for a senior year to chase the national championship at Ohio State. 70 passes caught, 896 yards, and 10 tutties. An ideal NFL slot wide receiver. Could be high volume in that case. Quick first step, clean routes, slants, drags. Michael Thomas, a PPR volume receiving option. Puka Nacua. Egbuka could be that type of guy if he refines his route running. So that's a solid option right there. I think that's 10 or 11. Now continuing on, again, another receiver has to go off the board next. Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond, man, he's another good receiving option. He spent his first 2 years in Alabama where he broke out, then transferred over to Texas. Past season, injury-filled. That's why he's dropping down the board. 33 catches, 532 yards, and 5 tutties. Never had a 700-yard receiving season, but he's athletic, and really you're going for the ceiling here. You're not super excited about him in terms of injuries, but the talent definitely is there, which is why he's going to close out as the 12th pick, I believe. He could be the first of round 2. Now, continuing on, we got 2 running backs that have to go off the board. Those are going to be the next 2 guys. So let me count out how many we've got drafted. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's all of round 1. Now we're in round 2 of the mock draft. You're at the 2 of 1. And if you're the 2 of 1 and you got these 2 guys sitting there available, look at the landing spot. Travion Henderson to the Ravens. Obviously, he would take a back seat to Derrick Henry in this case for the first, year or 2 until Derrick Henry retires or gets hurt. But Henderson was a high recruit, very explosive when given space, dangerous in space, elite receiving ability, might be a bit more of a third down receiving back at the NFL level, high PPR upside, but probably not going to be that lead running back immediately. He'd probably, think Chase Brown. He'd kind of have to be a Chase Brown type player, hope to earn a role. The floor is a bit lower than some of these other running backs that went a lot higher. So that's why Travion Henderson is a round 2 pick in this case. Up next, we're going to go with Quinshon Judkins. Now, talking about Judkins, a super early breakout. He had 1,500 true freshman rushing yards. He dominated at Mississippi before transferring to Ohio State. Then the O-line got injured, and he had to share the backfield again. He split the backfield with Travion Henderson. So we see both Ohio State running backs get drafted, and we're seeing him go 2 of 1 and 2 of 2 right here. He could have had, he had less than 1,000 rushing yards in his season prior to the draft, but he split the backfield, could have been higher. That's why you see Judkins going down right here. Now, I'm trying to think about who I would want to see get drafted next. I would probably... There's a prospect that I do really like. There's a couple prospects that are pretty good. I think the next guy that's going to be going off of my board is going to be... This is where things, a lot of people have heard of all of these guys. Once you start getting down to the nitty-gritty, it's a little bit more confusing, and you really kind of have to know your recruiting class and who the talent is going into the draft. I'm going to go with Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson of the Chiefs. He's competing with Pacheco. Kareem Hunt's not much of a worry to me. I think that Sampson on the Chiefs would be a very, very good fit. And that's why I think I'm going to boost him on my board. He's a solid running back option. And with all the running backs that have already went off of the board, I think that kind of raises his importance right here in the draft. Now, next guy I want to talk about is going to be receiver. Jalen Royals. They got Amonra. They got Jamison Williams. They got Laporta. Wide receiver 3. Jalen Royals has a very, very, very high ceiling. He's a bit unrefined, but he is very, very good. He's got Rashee Rice type talent, a raw route runner. He's athletic. He's got explosive footwork. He had 554 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. A lot of upside, but hopefully he's able to get acclimated to the NFL. Jalen Royals would be a very, very good pick, and I'd be very happy if I was able to get him on the board right here. Now, there's a couple guys where potentially aren't even on this list of players that could potentially go drafted a little bit higher. We already got Isaiah Bond off of the list. Where's Alik? Is Alik on the board? I mean, yeah, right here. Alik Iomaner. I think this guy, if he goes to the Panthers with Bryce Young, that's a good rookie. I call him Bryce Young a rookie. Bryce Young is playing like a rookie because he got benched and now he's back. But I think that Iomaner would be a very solid pick right here. He's a shining beacon of talent on an awful football team. He has perhaps the best body control in the entire wide receiver class, built on highlight catches, being physical, boxing out defenders, think DK Metcalf, but he only got 831 receiving yards in his final season at Stanford. It's basically a project. He's a project-type running back, but the Panthers could use some of that to pair up with Bryce Young. Now, looking at the rest of these guys on the board, I think Jack Beck might be a solid option to get drafted next right here. Jack Beck at TCU. Solid season, solid receiver, a bit of a project. If he gets drafted to the Giants, he's the clear number 2, besides Malik Neighbors, who had a very strong rookie season. So that's why he's kind of falling a bit in this draft. Jalen Milroe would be my next option. Again, a project quarterback. Probably comes in to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a year if Aaron Rodgers comes back. If not, we could see him potentially even be the starter. But the Jets quarterback, man, if Aaron Rodgers can't do it, what the heck? What can Jalen Milroe do? It's concerning. It's concerning to me. But I do think that Jalen Milroe would be a very solid option right here. Now, looking it up next, Bashaw Tuden, running back Vikings. Aaron Jones is old, man. He is old. This guy carried the Virginia Tech offense for 2 years since transferring there from North Carolina A&T. Excellent speed and vision, top-notch returner, good receiving upside as a sophomore. He should be able to find an NFL role, and if he can get some elite workout numbers at the combine, he could even be higher on this board ahead of Dylan Sampson and some of these other guys. Now, the last couple picks, man, this is where things get interesting. If you're at the end of round 2, I'm going to be honest, you're kind of throwing up a prayer. And you're looking at landing spots. And Kyle Monangai, right? He's got to be he's last. He's last. Chargers, if they get Harold Fannin Jr., there's a couple of tight ends that are ahead of him in this draft class. We got Loveland, we got Tyler Warren. But he holds the all-time tight end leader in receiving yards and touchdowns for a college tight end. He also broke the single-season receptions and receiving mark this year. He's an H-back who won't add much as a blocker. Fannin could be a big slot receiving target in the right system. And the Chargers tight end is Will Dissly. If Will Dissly was having some good fantasy weeks, imagine what they could do with an untapped talent like this. That's why he's my next pick. In terms of who's next, I'd probably go with Trey Harris. Yes, he'd be the number 3, but Trey Harris is kind of one of those guys where I think that, if you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae Smith ahead. I think that, he did a lot. He did a lot of dirty work from Mississippi, running from both the slot and the outside. He had 1,030 receiving yards in only 8 games this year. So in the NFL, that could be big talent. Now, the Eagles aren't going receiver, so I don't like this mock draft. I'm just going to say that. But I do think that Trey Harris falling this far in the draft could be something that could help out whoever's drafting him. Now I'm going to go with Monagai now on the Packers. And I think Xavier Restrepo is also interchangeable right here at the end. I'd probably go Restrepo. I don't like him as much, but I like the landing spot more. So Monagai has 2 straight 1,200-plus rushing yard seasons for a Rutgers offense that worked through him. So tough runner with a low pace level who can work well through contact. He also flashed on some outside runs. But he'd be the backup to Josh Jacobs. I don't know what I was talking about receivers, man. I was hallucinating. This guy would be the backup to Josh Jacobs. And Jacobs has had a really good year. I don't see Jacobs going anywhere for at least another year. So that's what worries me there. Now, if we look at Restrepo, he has 2 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons at Miami. His role would probably be a deep threat. Russell Wilson has that deep ball, but Pickens is there, Mike Williams is there, and they're not having great seasons. So you'd want to see somebody with a bit more volume to be going earlier with more draft capital in this Dynasty Rookie Draft. Now that is 2 rounds of Dynasty Rookie talent, man. Who are you excited about? This mock draft might be trash. Let me know if you want to run it back. Show support. Smash the like and subscribe button. Peace out. Thanks for watching.